When a survey Dr. Norsworthy did in 2007 came out to be the most troublesome weed, that most of the consultants that were surveyed seemed to feel that was where we needed more research at, was in barnyard grass control. And one of the reasons we feel like is that it's so competitive. It's one of the most competitive annual grasses because it's a prolific seed producer, and it tillers out, it makes a great big plant, and yield losses, 70% from season-long interference with barnyard grass have been observed. And in '91, they looked at one barnyard grass plant placed 40 centimeters from a rice plant, reduced their yield by 27%. So even just one plant in your field is costing you yield. And you know, if you're going to get 90% control in a whole field, you've got 10% still out there growing that's going to cause you some problems. And just putting out seed for next year. Now the resistance in Arkansas, what we've run into is the repeated use of the same chemicals, or chemicals with the same mode of action, year after year after year. We've come up with plants, built the selection up to resistant populations. Propanil was our basis for barnyard grass control. What was that, '89? We confirmed. We had it long before then, but they confirmed it in 1989 that we had propanil resistant barnyard grass in Arkansas. Quinclorac came out in 1992. That was the replacement to kill propanil resistant barnyard grass. Resistant in 1994. Or let me see. In '99, we had a biotype that came resistant to propanil and quinclorac. So there we had two modes of action that one barnyard grass plant was resistant to. We got Clearfield rice in 2002 where we could use imazethapyr over rice and to control red rice with. It does have activity on barnyard grass. But most recently, we've had barnyard grass biotypes resistant to clomazone and imazethapyr. And we look at that and we think, okay, in 2002 we got imazethapyr. Now we're already starting to see some resistance to it. We did these models with pigweed and cotton, and we looked at them and they're pretty accurate, so they put together the same model looking at barnyard grass in rice. So how accurate were the prediction models of ALS resistant barnyard grass? What we looked at was if you used imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr year after year in that program, in about, let's see, 4 to 7 years, you had over 80% probability that you're going to get resistant biotypes to imazethapyr. And so, in 2002 we had it, 2009 we started getting resistant barnyard grass to imazethapyr. But also in that model we looked at what was the value of applying a soil residual like clomazone pre. When we look at when we put just one application of clomazone pre in that same model of imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr, the model shows that we can reduce our probability of resistance for almost 27 years. So there's the added benefit of adding a soil residual in your program. Even if you're going to use imazethapyr and it does great, put something else down there with it to save that chemistry and that mode of action that you have. Let's take a look at what we've already got resistance to. Resistance to command, to facet, propanil, and ALS inhibitors. So what are we left with? If we lose these chemistries, we have Prowl, Bolero, Clincher, and Rice Star. Can you do a rice control, weed control program with those modes of action, those chemistry? It's not easy. What do we have coming down the pipeline? New herbicides we're looking at in rice. Alert. That's generic command. That's not going to do us any better. We've got Facet Liquid. It looks better than dry Facet. It's a little bit more active, but still, it's not going to control barnyard grass as well if you're resistant to it, and it's very weak on Springletop. The Quinstar, just a generic. Broadhead looks real good, but still we're still using quinclorac, so we're not going to get the control of the Springletop, and if you've got resistant barnyard grass, you're going to miss it. The propanil combinations, they've mixed just about everything they can with propanil to make it sell better. And it looks good. These do look really good. And even though you have propanil resistant barnyard grass, propanil is still a good herbicide to use in your program because of the broadleaf weed control. But you can't count on it for your barnyard grass control. And then ALS inhibitors down here, Halomax and Permit Plus, they're new. They're not going to do anything for your barnyard grass. League, we're looking at it going out pre with command. It's looking pretty good, but still, it's not the answer to the barnyard grass that we're facing. So our concern is we have this potential threat of multiple herbicide resistance. We know that barnyard grass can do it because it's become resistant to propanil and quinclorac. So if we keep on, we could have a multiple resistant plant to 2, 3, maybe 4 modes of action. And the use of the combinations that we're looking at that contain multiple modes of action is going to be our best management practice to reduce this probability of happening. And we're just going to do it with the products we currently have because right now, I don't think there's anything new coming down the pipeline that's a silver bullet for our grass control. What I'd like to show you here And we're looking at barnyard grass control 2 weeks after flood in programs with imazethapyr. And these was done here at Rohwer. Imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr, 2 shots, an early post and a pre-flood, 90% control of barnyard grass. We had some escapes. Those escapes came out, made seed, reduced our yield. We're also looking at sesbania control in the yellow bar. No sesbania control from imazethapyr. So you got to think about that. There's more to it than just grass control. When we think of a program, we have all these other aspects of other weeds that we've got to control. Application of clomazone pre, followed by carfentrazone and quinclorac. This is a conventional program, no imazethapyr. We're still just getting 90% control. We're controlling hemp sesbania, but we're still lacking a little bit in our barnyard grass control. So let's put them together. When we put clomazone pre out, followed by imazethapyr, and then another shot at imazethapyr with quinclorac and carfentrazone, we're doing really good. We've got good control. Is it cheap? Probably not, but you're clean. We have imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr with propanil and thiobencarb. We're still getting good control of a barnyard grass. Now I do have to note that everything we've got here is susceptible. We don't have any resistant biotypes on this station. We're trying to keep that from happening. So we could control it still with propanil. Sesbania control is on up there, but we had a few escapes. And then this last one was imazethapyr plus Rebel X, which is sahalifop and panoxalam premix, followed by another shot of imazethapyr. We're also getting really good control, but that's again, we're using the ACCase, and we're still worried that we're going to start seeing some ACCase resistance, because the way it's going now, we're waiting until the last minute to use ACCase chemistry, your rice stars and your clinchers. When that grass is big, we're getting failures. When we get failures, we're just building ourselves up for a problem. Now this is some work Dr. Norsworthy did looking at. This was some ALS resistant barnyard grass. They tested it against Regiment and New Path, and we're having no success in killing it. So he pulled this out, and we looked at imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr against a susceptible biotype and a resistant biotype. Only 44% control of the resistant biotype with 2 shots of imazethapyr. When he put clomazone pre followed by the 2 shots, 100% control of the susceptible, and we're getting on up to about 88% control of the resistant biotype. So that addition of a clomazone pre, now it does take a lot of water management to get clomazone to work as good as what we get it, and we are fortunate that we can get our water management here at a level where we can keep stuff activated. I know in a producer's field it's not that easy, but keeping that clomazone active and keeping it moist can do a lot for you and keeping your grass populations down. Looking at pendimethalin plus quinclorac as a delayed pre-application, followed by 2 shots of imazethapyr, really good control of both biotypes. So we can control it, but we cannot rely on our imazethapyr anymore for barnyard grass control. And again, we're looking at imazethapyr followed by imazethapyr plus phenoxaprop. We're still not getting good control, and what my fear is that if we let the barnyard grass get too tall, rice star just not going to kill it. If it's above 3 leaf, you're getting out of your window for rice star, and you really don't want to do that with clincher either. Clincher works better when you have a lot of water, so it's going to be after a flood, but by that time that barnyard grass is so big it's really not going to take care of it. So our objective this year was to examine barnyard grass control with various herbicide combinations that excluded different modes of action. Like I said, we don't have any resistant populations, so what we did was we designed protocols where we just left out certain modes of action to see what we could do with what was left. And since we don't have anything, we left propanil out because propanil still works very good for us. We was afraid we'd have too much injury or too much control with propanil, so we just left all propanil out of the program and just came back thinking, okay, if we have propanil plus ALS resistance, what can we build to control our barnyard grass with? And on down the line, we did it. If we lost propanil plus quinclorac in conventional rice, and then again in clearfield rice, because in the clearfield we have the ALS chemistry that we can use to pick up some of our gaps. Propanil plus ALS plus clomazone resistance. Now we're losing 3 modes of action. It gets a little bit trickier, but we can still use we still got some products we can use, and we've got some clean plots out there. In conventional rice again, propanil plus quinclorac plus clomazone, and then in a clearfield we can use ALS. And then the last one, what happens if we lose propanil, quinclorac, ALS, and clomazone? What do we have left? We had Prowl Bolero and Rice Star and Clincher. I've got some clean plots. They're expensive because there's a lot of applications. It's not a position you want to be in, and what I will warn you about is Springletop. Yes, I could control barnyard grass, and a lot of these programs where I control barnyard grass, I completely miss Springletop. I still don't have any plot. I don't have any rice because the Springletop just completely took over. We just turned it loose. And so with this ALS chemistry especially, imazethapyr is not strong on Springletop. A lot of the quinclorac not strong on it. There's a lot of these other ones that just miss Springletop, and we're starting to see more and more of it as we get barnyard grass whipped down. The Springletop's just going to come in and take its place, which seems like that with every weed species we have. We get one beat down, another one pops up and is just as bad. Now I'm going to take a quote from Ford Baldwin here. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but in 1996 in an article he wrote, he told us it is equally important for growers who do not yet have the problem to manage for prevention as it is for growers with a resistant population to manage for control. So if you are lucky and you don't have any resistance on your farm, that's great. But start thinking about what can I do to keep that from happening, because you don't want to mess with this. You don't want this scenario on your farm because it starts costing more and more money. And it's just as simple as rotating our modes of action, using different chemistries, and just staying on top of it. And there's other things we can do. Best management practice, resistance management techniques, and also scout. Look at that field. If you see some barnyard grass in there and you can't get it with a herbicide, go in there and knock it out. Now, we always said we couldn't afford a hoe crew or a road crew, but when this pigweed took over, we've seen a lot more chopping crews out there taking weeds out. If we can do the same management in rice, if we have a barnyard grass plant that escaped, just go out there, pull it up, throw it on the turn road and let it die. Don't let that seed get back in your seed bank in that rice field. We can rotate to other crops that work great. A soybean rotation works good. We can use Roundup or Ignite programs to kill barnyard grass. But even in those programs, we have beans coming out earlier and earlier every year. When you get your beans out early, what are you going to do? We just let that field grow up. We need to keep it disced. We need to do something to keep that barnyard grass from coming back, because in a short amount of time it can still produce seed heads. If you're going to go from beans to rice and that barnyard grass has enough time at the end of the year to put seed in the ground, that's just a bigger problem for you next year. So I don't know how much it would cost you in time or diesel to run a disc through there, but that's a good management practice to go ahead and disc the field under, get rid of that barnyard grass, the way next year you're starting clean again. Anything we can do as a proactive approach to reduce our chances for multiple resistance is probably where we need to be looking at now as rice producers, on what can we do to keep this from happening on my farm. Whatever I can do to keep this from happening, because it's not just barnyard grass. There's other species here that we do have, such as Springletop, that has tendency to be, some herbicides are just weak on it. It has a tendency to build that tolerance up to other herbicides as well. So we got to be looking at other species besides barnyard grass as a potential threat on what it is. If they escape a herbicide application, we don't want to let them go to seed or anything like that, because it's just not barnyard grass. We have so many different weeds. There's newer weeds coming out that we don't know much about with Texas weed. I don't know if any of you have a problem with that. It's really tough to kill. The aquatics aren't as bad, but we're starting to see more dayflower. We're getting a lot of questions about dayflower, about smart weeds, about joint vetch. And so there's other weeds that are coming in, even crabgrass. I've noticed some of that in my fields this year. We've never had crabgrass come in a flood, but that's something we're starting to look at, is what else are we going to be looking at as a potential threat in a rice weed control program.